This year, in the regular season, the Las Vegas Aces had their worst record since Beckham and became coach. They went 27 wins, 13 losses. Now, you all may say, what's the big deal? That's not that bad. Well, we're going to get into it. The reason for the 13 losses was partially because of injuries, right? But also because the Las Vegas Aces has not really evolved since 2022. Can you believe what's happening to the Las Vegas Aces right now? They were the queens of the WNBA, but now they're falling apart faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, and you can't look away. You might be thinking, how did it all go so wrong so fast? Well, buckle up, because we're about to take you on a wild ride through the Aces' implosion, from their shocking playoff exit to the drama tearing apart their locker room. It's a story that's going to leave you shaking your head in disbelief. Remember when the Aces were the team to beat? The unstoppable force of the WNBA? Well, that feels like ancient history now. The Las Vegas Aces, the team that revitalized the modern day super team in the WNBA, they went from dominating the league, winning back-to-back championships, literally having teams craft their roster in order to beat the Aces. That same team that was at the top of the mountain when it came to the WNBA is now the team that did not live up to expectations this year, and is a team that's one by one falling apart in front of our own very eyes. Let's rewind to that playoff series against the Liberty. The Aces strutted onto the court like they already had the trophy in their hands, but then something went terribly wrong. You know how the Aces offense used to be a well-oiled machine? Well, in this series, it looked more like a rusty old jalopy. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter we all know and love, suddenly couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And Chelsea Gray, the point guard wizard we've seen pull rabbits out of hats all season long, her magic touch vanished when it mattered most. Her shooting percentages took a dive, leaving fans scratching their heads in disbelief. Yes, this is a very talented team. However, they lost games they shouldn't have lost. Some of the star players on the team did not show up when they needed to show up. And ultimately, they lose. But here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just one or two players having an off night. The entire team looked like they'd forgotten how to play basketball overnight. Passes were sloppy, shots were rushed, and the dot chemistry that made them so deadly during the regular season nowhere to be found. So even with the MVP on their roster, even with a $1 million NBA coach, even with 6 Olympians on your team, the Aces lose in the semifinals, and their quest for a rare three-peat is now over. You might be thinking, come on, everyone has a bad game now. And then, but this wasn't just a bad game. This was a complete meltdown on the biggest stage. The Aces offense, which had been there, bread and butter all season, crumbled like a house of cards. Sure, the Aces still won games, but the Aces that we see now is a star personality, heavy team that lacked the hunger that drives teams to actually be exceptional and win championships. Now you might be wondering, how bad could it really have been? Well, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a team that dominated all season suddenly looking like they'd never played together before. Players were out of position, shots were clanking off the rim, and the Liberty were having a field day with all the turnovers. You think that on-court meltdown was a disaster? Well, get ready, because what's happening behind closed doors is even more explosive. Remember how the Aces used to be this unstoppable force? Now their locker room is like a powder keg ready to blow. And at the center of it all, the golden girl herself, A'ja Wilson. Let's break it down. The Aces locker room has gone from popping champagne to a full-on war zone. Players are at each other's throats, and that championship chemistry, it's gone up in smoke. But here's where it gets really interesting. A'ja Wilson, the one-time face of the franchise, is now the one everyone's pointing fingers at. You might be thinking, come on, how bad could it really be? Well, picture this. An anonymous player actually said it's like walking on eggshells sometimes. You never know what's going to set her off. Can you believe that? The same A'ja Wilson who used to rally the troops is now the one making everyone nervous. And it's not just her teammates feeling the heat. Coach Becky Hammond, usually the picture of calm, is starting to crack. She's been weirdly quiet about Wilson's behavior, but even she couldn't help throwing some shade. Hammond said, "We're all working on being better versions of ourselves." Talk about a polite way of saying, get it together, people. But wait, there's more. Wilson's not just causing drama in person. She's taking it to social media, too. We're talking emotional outbursts, passive-aggressive posts, the whole 9 yards. Fans and analysts are starting to wonder if she's really cut out to lead the team through this mess. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for the Aces, Becky Hammond dropped that bombshell. I loved the way that Becky has conducted herself this season. There has been multiple things that have made me think about her maybe a little bit differently than I did in the past. And maybe it was because I hadn't seen as much from her as I did this season. But this interview to me was very telling. She publicly called out her players for caring more about their Instagram likes than their jump shots. Ouch. That's not just a coach being tough. That's a coach who's lost control of her team. You thought the player drama was bad. Well, get ready because the Aces front office just turned into a ghost town. Remember when this team was the envy of the league? Now they're scrambling just to keep the lights on. Let's break it down. General Manager Natalie Williams, she's out. Her top assistants, they've all jumped ship, too. On Saturday, October the 26th, the Las Vegas Aces announced that General Manager Natalie Williams will not be returning to the team as part of a restructuring of the front office. It's like watching rats flee a sinking ship, and the Aces are taking on water fast. Can you believe how quickly things are falling apart? Now, you might be wondering who's left to make the big decisions. Free agency is right around the corner, and the Aces front office is emptier than a Vegas casino at sunrise. There's no one left to call the shots, and that's a huge problem. It's a lot of question marks, and I really do think that there's a whole sea change for the Las Vegas Aces that has started already. It's going to continue to come. We're going to see players leaving this team. We're going to see more, at least probably one more coach leave the team. And so, hey, they had their heyday already, and now their heyday is up. But here's where it gets really interesting. Coach Becky Hammond is eyeing a Cheryl Reeves-style takeover. She's thinking about combining coaching and GM duties. Sounds great in theory, right? But let's be real. Can one person really save this sinking ship, especially when there's so much chaos going on? They also will potentially be losing another assistant coach, Tyler Marsh, as well. Tyler Marsh has been speaking with the Atlanta Dream and the LA Sparks about their head coaching roles. And so it's possible that Tyler may be headed to one of those cities to become a head coach. Think about it. The Aces are like a ship with only the captain left. No first mate, no navigator, no crew. How's Hammond supposed to steer this thing back on course all by herself? It's a tall order. If you like the video, then give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Even for someone as talented as her. And let's not forget, this is happening at the worst possible time. The team's falling apart on the court. Players are looking to bail. And now there's no one upstairs to keep things together. It's a perfect storm of disaster for the Aces. So the first domino that fell was on October the 10th, when Natalie Nakase, who had been with the team during their championship runs, she decided to leave her assistant coach role with the Aces and become the new Golden State Valkyries head coach. You might be thinking, surely they can just hire new people, right? But it's not that simple. Who wants to jump on board a sinking ship? The Aces' reputation is taking a beating, and finding top-tier talent to fill these roles is going to be a major challenge. Just when you thought the Aces couldn't sink any lower, they've managed to dig themselves an even deeper hole. Can you believe what's happening now? We're talking serious allegations here, and it's not just about losing games anymore. The Aces are facing a pregnancy discrimination lawsuit from player Dearica Hamby. She's saying she was bullied and harassed for being pregnant. The team, endured some scandal a bit, right? And they had a lawsuit from a former player, Dearica Hamby, when she filed a lawsuit alleging discrimination and retaliation, and in the lawsuit itself, she named GM Natalie Williams by name. That's not just bad, that's downright shocking. The WNBA isn't sitting back and watching this unfold. They said it was a violation of workplace respect, and as if that wasn't enough, the Aces have lost a first-round pick in the 2025 draft. Now, you might be thinking, surely that's the worst of it, right? Wrong. The WNBA is now investigating the Aces for potential salary cap violation. Partially the reason why the Las Vegas Aces will not have a draft pick in the 2025 WNBA draft. The reason why is because they got their draft pick stripped from them because they were trying to circumvent the salary cap and was caught by the WNBA. Remember when the Las Vegas Convention Authority gave each player an extra $100,000 in May? Yeah, that's raising some serious eyebrows. The league's looking into allegations of under the table benefits provided to players. If this turns out to be true, we're talking about massive fines and even more draft penalties. Let's break it down. If the Aces are found guilty of these salary cap violations, it could be a
disaster.
We've seen this before in other sports leagues, and it never ends well. And it signals that there are way more changes ahead, guys. Way more changes ahead. Because when we talk about the Aces, they have been the standard for the last several years, and they are no longer the standard. Teams that break these rules often face long-term consequences that can cripple their franchises for years. With all this going on, is it any wonder their star players are looking for the exit? The Aces' reputation is in tatters, and it's hard to see how they'll attract top talent now. They're not just losing games, they're losing credibility, draft picks, and potentially a whole lot of money. Remember the Indiana Fever, the team everyone used to laugh at? Well, they're not the punchline anymore. In fact, they're about to turn the WNBA upside down. And it all starts with one name, Caitlin Clark. Can you believe what Clark's done in her debut season? She's not just good, she's rewriting the record books. We're talking 62 record shattered. That's not a typo, 62, but here's where it gets really interesting. Clark isn't just putting up crazy numbers, she's breathing new life into this team. You might be thinking, okay, but one player can't change everything, right?
Wrong.
Clark's leadership is contagious. She's got the whole team fired up. Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, they're all stepping up their game. It's like Clark's energy is spreading through the whole roster. But wait, there's more. The Fever aren't just relying on Clark's star power, they're rebuilding from the ground up. Remember Kelly Krauskopf, the mastermind behind their 2012 championship? She's back as team president. And get this, under her leadership, the Fever made the playoffs 13 times in 17 seasons. That's the kind of experience you can't buy. Now let's talk about their new GM, Amber Cox. She's not just any executive, she's got connections. And in the WNBA, connections mean everything. You can bet she's going to use those connections to bring in even more talent. And who's leading this team on the court? None other than Stephanie White. She's not just any coach, she's Indiana basketball royalty. And as a player and now as a coach, she knows what it takes to win, and she's hungry to bring another championship to Indiana. But here's what's really setting the Fever apart. They're not just collecting talent, they're building a culture. It's all about teamwork, player development, and a winning mindset.
And you know what?
It's working. A league insider spilled the tea saying, "We are at a point where we have an attractive group. We can attract a few free agents to come here and bolster us on the path that we're on." Yeah, I mean, it's clear that we have two foundational players, probably three. You get two rookies of the year in a row with a front court player in Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and then Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, I think the veteran leadership that Kelsey was able to provide, we need to help her, we need to add to that. Think about that for a second. The Fever, yes, the same Fever that used to be the league's punching bag, are now a destination for top talent. Clark's star power, a revamped front office, a winning culture, it's all coming together.
Can you
believe how quickly things can change in the WNBA? We're watching a major power shift right before our eyes. The Aces, once the league's unstoppable force, are crumbling like a house of
cards.
But here's where it gets really interesting. As Vegas falls, Indiana rises. The Fever are showing everyone how to build a winning team the right way, and it's paying off big time. I would think that if you are a smart basketball player and you watch the way she plays, you would want to play with her. Much like Tyrese Halliburton, she gets you the ball in places that you didn't even know you were open. Now you might be wondering, what's next for Aya Wilson? And the Aces? Can they pull themselves out of this nosedive? Or is their dynasty done for good? It's hard to see a clear path back to the top with all the drama swirling around them. But hey, stranger things have happened in sports, right? Let's be real though. All eyes are on Indiana right now. They're not just winning games, they're winning hearts. The Fever are proving that with the right leadership, culture, and a superstar like Caitlin Clark, you can turn a franchise around faster than you can say triple-double. So buckle up, WNBA fans. The league's landscape is changing, and it's going to be one wild ride. Thanks for watching and subscribe this channel.